Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. The antiseptic smell of the hospital room couldn't mask the lingering scent of Lila's favorite jasmine perfume. Mark Ellison clutched his wife's hand, her fingers growing colder with each passing second. The machines beeped in a rhythm that seemed to slow with her fading heartbeat. Outside the window, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Lila's favorite time of day. "Promise me," Lila whispered, her once vibrant voice now barely audible. Her golden hair lay damp against the pillow, her blue eyes still radiant despite the pain. "Promise me you'll find love again, Mark." Mark shook his head, tears streaming unchecked down his face. At 35, the successful CEO had conquered the business world, but here in this sterile room, he was powerless. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. We'll take the twins home tomorrow," Mark said. Lila squeezed his hand with surprising strength. "Listen to me. Our babies need a mother's love. Don't let them grow up without that. Don't let them grow up seeing only half of you alive." In the adjacent room, their newborn twins, barely 3 hours old, were being cleaned and checked by nurses. A boy and a girl, Noah and Sophie, perfect in every way except for the complication that had robbed their mother of her strength. "I can't," Mark choked out. "I'll never love anyone the way I love you." Lila's lips curved into a gentle smile. "Not the same way, a different way, a new way." She took a shuddering breath. "Remember how we met? You spilled coffee all over my economics textbook." Mark nodded, his mind flashing back to that rainy morning in college. Lila, soaked from the downpour, laughing instead of being angry at his clumsiness, the way the fluorescent lights of the campus cafe had created a halo around her golden hair. How he'd known in that instant that she was his future. "And Paris," she continued, her voice fading. "The way you proposed at sunrise under the Eiffel Tower, you made me redo it because I was so nervous." "I forgot half my speech," Mark said, trying to smile through his tears. "The day we found out about the twins," Lila whispered. "You cried more than I did." Mark pressed his forehead against their joined hands. "You're my everything, Lila, my whole heart." "No," she said firmly, using the last of her strength to place her hand against his chest. "Not your whole heart, just your first heart. There's room for more love, Mark. Promise me, you'll open yourself to it when it comes." The machines began to alarm as her vitals dropped. Doctors rushed in, but Lila's eyes never left Mark's. "Promise me che insisted." "I promise," Mark whispered. "I promise." Her last breath carried the faintest smile as the doctors called her time of death. Mark collapsed at her bedside, a guttural cry tearing from his throat. It was a sound so primal, so filled with anguish, that the nurses outside the room held their own children tighter that night when they went home. 3 hours later, Mark sat in a rocking chair in the hospital nursery, a tiny bundle cradled in each arm. Noah and Sophie Ellison, unaware that they had entered the world at the exact moment their mother had left it. The nurse had tried to take them to the nursery, but Mark couldn't bear to let them out of his sight. These tiny creatures were all he had left of Lila now. "I don't know how to do this without her," he whispered to his sleeping children. "She was supposed to be here. She had your names picked out since the day we found out you were coming. She painted your nursery herself, yellow, because she didn't want to know if you were boys or girls or one of each. She wanted to be surprised." Sophie's tiny hand escaped the blanket, her fingers wrapping instinctively around Mark's pinky. Something broke open inside him all over again. "Your mother was the best person I've ever known," he told them, his tears falling onto their blankets. "She loved you so much already. She used to play classical music for you every night. She said you danced inside her when Beethoven played." Noah stirred in his sleep, his face scrunching up in an expression so reminiscent of Lila that Mark gasped. "I'll love you enough for both of us," he promised. "I'll tell you about her every day, how brave she was, how kind, how she could light up a room just by walking into it." The night deepened outside the hospital windows as Mark rocked his children, whispering memories of their mother into their newborn ears, as if he could somehow imprint Lila's love into their hearts before they ever knew the shape of loss. The funeral was a blur. Mark stood stoic in his black suit, the twins in the care of his sister Claire for the day. He accepted condolences mechanically, nodding at appropriate intervals, shaking hands that he didn't feel. His parents, Edward and Margaret Ellison, managed the guests with practiced precision, their grief contained in the tight lines around their eyes. Mark should take some time away. He overheard his mother telling someone, "We've suggested he bring the babies to our home in Connecticut. He can't possibly manage them, and the company—" Mark turned away. He knew his parents meant well, but the thought of leaving the home he'd built with Lila was unbearable. Every corner held a memory. Her reading nook by the bay window, the kitchen where she danced while cooking Sunday breakfast, the garden she'd planted with herbs and flowers that filled the air with fragrance all summer long. That night, after everyone had gone, Mark sat in the nursery Lila had so lovingly prepared. 2 identical cribs with mobile stars, turning slowly. Overhead, a mural of a night sky that Lila had painted herself, constellations forming the shapes of lions and bears and heroes. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the seismic shift in their tiny universe. Mark picked up the baby book Lila had been keeping during her pregnancy, running his fingers over her handwriting. Week 28. The twins are so active today. I felt a foot, an actual tiny foot, press against my hand. Mark talks to them every night now. I think they recognize his voice because they always settle down when he reads to them. Mark closed the book, unable to bear any more. He looked down at his sleeping children. So perfect, so innocent. Tomorrow, he would need to interview nannies. He would need to figure out how to be both father and mother. He would need to learn how to live in a world without Lila. But tonight, he simply pulled the rocking chair between their cribs and kept watch, his hand resting on each little bed, forming a bridge between his children, the only future he had left. I don't know how, he whispered into the darkness, but I'll find a way to give you everything she would have. I promise. Somewhere in the quiet house, a clock ticked forward, marking the first of many nights without Lila, the first night of Mark's journey to fulfill a deathbed promise he wasn't sure he could ever keep. Chapter 2. Warmth in the Cold Mansion. 1 year after Lila's death, the Ellison mansion stood as a beautiful but hollow shell of what once was a vibrant home. Though immaculately maintained, the house had lost its soul. Fresh flowers no longer brightened the entryway. The kitchen rarely filled with the scent of home-cooked meals. Music, once a constant companion in every room, had fallen silent. Even the garden Lila had lovingly tended now relied on hired hands who couldn't possibly know that the roses needed to be spoken to each morning, as Lila had always done. Mark Ellison moved through his days like a ghost in his own life. At work, he was still the formidable CEO, making decisions with precision and authority, but employees whispered about the change in him, how the light had gone from his eyes, how he never joined them for after-work gatherings anymore, how his office door remained closed except for scheduled meetings. At home, he poured every remaining ounce of his energy into the twins. Now 1-year-old, Noah and Sophie were growing reminders of what he'd lost. Sophie had Lila's golden curls and dimpled smile. Noah had her thoughtful gaze and the same little crease between his eyebrows when he concentrated on something. Mark had managed with a rotation of nannies, none lasting more than a few months. Some found him too demanding, others couldn't handle the twins' increasing needs, and a few were simply not a good fit for a household draped in quiet grief. You need someone permanent, Claire urged during her weekly visit. She watched as Mark attempted to feed Sophie, who was stubbornly refusing the spoon. The twins need stability. You've gone through 4 nannies in a year. 5, Mark corrected, wiping pureed carrots from his expensive shirt. And none of them were right. Claire sighed, easily getting Noah to take his bottle. That's because you're comparing them all to Lila. That's not fair, she said. Mark protested, though he knew there was truth in her words. The twins haven't bonded with anyone, Claire. They're quiet for their age. Pediatric development books say they should be babbling more, trying to say words. Mark looked at his children. It was true. Sophie and Noah rarely made sounds beyond crying when they needed something. They didn't laugh the way other babies did. They watched the world with solemn eyes, as if they too felt the absence at the center of their home. I found someone, Claire said cautiously. She comes highly recommended by Elizabeth Thompson. You know, my friend who runs the International Aid Foundation. This woman worked in their Jamaica office, caring for the founder's children. She's looking for a position in the States to send money home to her family. Mark frowned. I don't know, Claire. Another temporary solution. Just meet her, Claire pressed. She's different. There's something special about her. Maya Carter arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, carrying a single suitcase and a worn leather purse. Standing on the doorstep of the imposing Ellison mansion, she took a deep breath before ringing the bell. At 26, Maya had already seen more hardship than most people twice her age. The eldest of 5 siblings, she had put her own dreams of becoming a teacher on hold to help support her family after her father's death 3 years earlier. The heavy oak door swung open to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and eyes that held a sadness so profound it nearly took Maya's breath away. Mark Ellison looked nothing like the confident CEO from the company photos she'd seen online. Up close, he was a man carved by grief, his handsome features sharpened by loss. "Mr. Ellison," Maya said, extending her hand. "I'm Maya Carter. Your sister arranged for me to meet you about the position." Mark hesitated before taking her hand. "Please, come in. The twins are having their morning snack." Maya followed him through the grand entryway, noting the beautiful architecture and artwork that adorned the walls. Yet, for all its splendor, the house felt cold, unlived in. As if it were a museum dedicated to happiness that had once existed. In the kitchen, a harried-looking older woman was attempting to feed 2 children in high chairs. Both babies were refusing to eat, their little faces set in identical expressions of stubborn refusal. "Mrs. Winters has been helping out this week," Mark explained, "but she's leaving for her daughter's wedding tomorrow." Maya nodded at the woman and then turned her attention to the twins. Instead of immediately approaching them, she set her purse down and began to hum softly, a Jamaican folk song her grandmother had taught her. The gentle melody filled the kitchen, and something remarkable happened. Both twins turned toward the sound, their eyes widening with interest. Maya continued humming as she slowly approached the high chairs. "Hello, little ones," she said when the song ended. "My name is Maya." Sophie, who had been refusing food for 20 minutes, according to Mrs. Winters, reached her hands toward Maya. "May I?" Maya asked Mark, who nodded, surprise evident on his face. Maya picked up the spoon and offered Sophie another bite, still humming softly. To everyone's astonishment, Sophie opened her mouth and accepted the food without protest. When Maya turned to Noah with the same gentle approach, he too accepted the offering. "They haven't been this cooperative in days," Mark said, watching in disbelief. Maya smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed her face. Children respond to music. It speaks to them in a language they understand. As she continued feeding the twins, Mark studied her more carefully. Maya Carter was beautiful in an understated way. Warm brown skin, eyes the color of amber, and a crown of dark curls that she'd pulled back into a neat bun. But it wasn't her physical appearance that commanded attention. It was the gentle confidence in her movements, the natural way she engaged with the twins without trying to force their affection. After the meal, Maya cleaned the twins' faces with such tender care that Mark felt a strange tightness in his chest. When was the last time he'd seen his children treated with such natural affection? The nannies had been professional, efficient, but none had shown this innate understanding of what his babies needed. "Would you like to see the rest of the house?" Mark asked, already knowing he was going to hire her. That evening, after reviewing Maya's references and discussing terms, Mark offered her the position. Maya accepted, asking only if she could have a photo of the twins to send to her mother. "She likes to know the children I care for," Maya explained. "She says it helps her pray for them properly." Mark found himself smiling at this, the first genuine smile in longer than he could remember. "That's nice. Of course you can." After Maya left to retrieve her belongings from her temporary accommodation, Mark wandered into the twins' nursery. They were already asleep in their cribs, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronicity. "Something happened today," he whispered to them. "You both smiled. I'd almost forgotten what that looked like." Later that night, Mark found himself standing before Lila's photograph in the bedroom they had shared. Her smile beamed back at him, frozen in time at their last anniversary dinner 6 months before she died. "There's someone new in the house," he told her, feeling both foolish and comforted by the one-sided conversation. The twins responded to her. Sophie actually reached out her arms, Lila. "I haven't seen her do that for anyone but me." He traced Lila's face through the glass. "I miss you every day, every hour." The twins look more like you each day. Sophie has your smile. I saw it today for the first time in months. Tears slid down his face, but they weren't the debilitating sobs that had characterized his first months of grief. These were quieter, tempered by the small spark of hope he'd felt watching Maya with his children. I'm trying to keep my promise, he whispered. I'm trying to give them all the love they deserve, but sometimes it feels impossible without you here. The photograph offered no answers, just Lila's eternal smile, encouraging him, as she always had in life. Maya moved into the guest suite the next day, bringing a splash of color to the muted household. Her room quickly transformed with photographs of her family, a hand-knit blanket from her grandmother, and a small potted plant she placed on the windowsill. It needs a little life, she explained when Mark questioned the changes. Plants remind us to grow toward the light. Within days, subtle changes began to appear throughout the mansion. The kitchen started to fill with the scent of Maya's cooking, some familiar American dishes, but also Jamaican specialties that filled the house with exotic aromas. She sang while she worked, her voice carrying through the hallways like a gentle breeze. Most significantly, the twins began to change. Maya had a way of engaging them that brought forth reactions Mark hadn't seen since Lila died. She created games that made them giggle, read stories with animated voices, and always, there was music. One evening, a week after Maya's arrival, Mark came home early from work to find her dancing around the living room with Sophie in her arms, while Noah bounced in rhythm from his playpen. The sound that stopped Mark in the doorway wasn't the music. It was laughter. His children were laughing. Maya spotted him and paused, suddenly self-conscious. "Mr. Ellison, I didn't expect you home so early. Please, don't stop," Mark said, his voice rougher than he intended. "They're happy." Maya's expression softened. "Children need joy. Mr. Bakshan 25. Ellison. It's as essential as food and sleep." "Mark," he said. "Please, call me Mark." That night, after the twins were asleep, Mark sat on the patio overlooking Lila's garden. The sound of the door sliding open made him turn. Maya stood hesitantly at the threshold, holding 2 mugs. "I made tea," she said. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all." Mark gestured to the chair beside him. "Please, join me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the night air filled with the scent of Lila's roses. Finally, Mark spoke. "I want to thank you, Maya. The twins, they're different since you arrived. More alive." Maya sipped her tea. "They're wonderful children. They just needed to remember how to be children." She paused, then added gently, "There's a saying in Jamaica, the sun must follow the rain. Even after the darkest storms, light returns." Mark studied her in the dim patio lighting. "How did you become so wise?" Maya smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "Life teaches hard lessons sometimes. My father died 3 years ago, leaving my mother with 5 children to raise. As the eldest, I had to become strong for them. Is that why you came to America? To support them?" She nodded. "My mother is unwell, diabetes. The medicine is expensive. What I earn here goes much further there." From her purse, she withdrew a photograph and handed it to Mark. A woman with Maya's same warm eyes sat surrounded by 4 younger children, all bearing Maya's smile. "My family," she said simply. "They're my heart." Mark understood. This woman knew loss too, different from his, but loss nonetheless. Perhaps that was why the twins responded to her. Perhaps grief recognized grief, just as love recognized love. "Sophie smiled today," Maya said, changing the subject. "When the sunlight hit her face through the window, she smiled just like the photo of your wife in the hallway." Mark felt the familiar ache, but it was accompanied by something else. Gratitude that someone else had noticed the resemblance, that someone else was helping to keep Lila's memory alive in their children. "Lila," he said, her name feeling both painful and precious on his lips. Her name was Lila. "Lila." Maya repeated softly. "A beautiful name. The twins have her spirit, I think, especially in their eyes." They talked until the tea grew cold, about the twins, about Jamaica, about small, safe things that didn't delve too deeply into the pain both carried. When Maya finally rose to leave, Mark felt lighter than he had in months. That night, for the first time since Lila's death, the Ellison mansion didn't feel quite so empty. Somewhere in the quiet darkness, a tiny spark of warmth had been kindled, fragile but undeniably present, like the first brave bloom in a garden after winter's longest night. Chapter 3. The Healing Touch. 3 years passed, transforming the once somber Ellison mansion into a home filled with the joyful sounds of children's laughter. The twins, now 4 years old, flourished under Maya's devoted care. Sophie had grown into a spirited little girl with golden curls that bounced when she ran and a smile that was the mirror image of her mother's. Noah, more reserved than his sister, had Lila's thoughtful nature and Mark's determined chin, a combination that made him appear older than his years. Maya had become the heart of their home, her warmth permeating every corner of what had once been a mausoleum to grief. The garden bloomed again under her care, as she had quietly taken over, tending Lila's beloved roses, speaking to them each morning just as Lila once had, a detail Mark had mentioned only once, but Maya had remembered. One chilly autumn evening, Mark returned home from work earlier than usual. A major business deal had fallen through, and for once, he hadn't had the energy to stay late, strategizing a recovery plan. As he hung his coat in the entryway, the sound of Maya's voice drifted from upstairs, not her usual singing, but something softer, more intimate. Following the sound, Mark paused outside Sophie's bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Inside, Maya sat on the edge of the bed, Sophie curled against her side, trembling. "The bad dream can't hurt you, little one," Maya was saying, her Jamaican accent more pronounced in her gentle tones. "It's just your mind telling stories while you sleep." "But it was scary," Sophie whimpered. "Daddy was gone too, like Mommy in heaven." Mark's heart constricted painfully. "Your daddy isn't going anywhere," Maya assured her, stroking Sophie's hair. "He loves you and Noah more than anything in this whole wide world." "More than his big company?" Sophie asked. "Much more," Maya said firmly. "And you know what? Your Mommy in heaven is watching over you, too. She sends angels to keep you safe." "Angels?" Sophie's voice held a hint of wonder now instead of fear. In Jamaica, my grandmother taught me that when we lose someone we love, they become our guardian angels. They're always near, especially when we're scared or sad." Mark leaned against the wall, overwhelmed by Maya's words, by how perfectly she balanced honoring Lila's memory while comforting his daughter. "I wish I remembered Mommy," Sophie said in a small voice. "That's why your daddy tells you stories about her," Maya replied. "So she'll always be part of your heart." She began to hum a gentle melody that Mark didn't recognize, a Jamaican lullaby she often sang to the twins. As her humming transformed into singing, Mark closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. Maya's voice was rich and soothing, the patois of her homeland carrying emotions that transcended language. Sophie's little voice eventually joined in on parts she'd learned, their voices twining together in the darkness. When the song ended, Mark heard rustling as Maya tucked Sophie in again. "Maya?" Sophie's voice was drowsy now. "Yes, sweet girl, I love you." There was a brief pause, and when Maya spoke again, her voice held a thickness that suggested tears. "I love you, too, Sophie. So very much." Mark silently retreated from the doorway, not wanting to intrude on the moment. Something shifted in his chest. An ache that had been with him so long he'd stopped noticing it suddenly eased just slightly. His daughter was loved. Lila would have wanted that so desperately. A week later, disaster struck. Noah woke in the middle of the night, burning with fever, his little body racked with chills. The pediatrician diagnosed pneumonia and recommended immediate hospitalization, but Noah became so hysterical at the suggestion of being separated from his family that the doctor reluctantly agreed to home treatment, with the understanding that if his condition worsened at all, they would go straight to the hospital. For 3 days and nights, Maya barely left Noah's side. She administered his medication, coaxed him to drink fluids, placed cool compresses on his forehead, and monitored his breathing with vigilance that impressed even the visiting nurse. When his fever spiked dangerously on the second night, she sat in the steam-filled bathroom with him for hours, holding his small body against her chest as the humidifier worked to ease his labored breathing. Mark took time off work, canceling meetings regardless of their importance. He and Maya worked in shifts, but even when it wasn't her turn to watch Noah, Mark would find her sleeping on the window seat in Noah's room, unwilling to be far from him, On the third night, Mark entered Noah's room at midnight to relieve Maya, only to find her rocking his son gently, her lips moving in silent prayer. Noah's breathing, which had been harsh and labored, seemed easier, his sleep more natural than it had been since he fell ill. "You should rest," Mark whispered. "I can take over." Maya looked up, dark shadows beneath her eyes, revealing her exhaustion. "His fever's breaking," she said with quiet joy. "Feel his forehead." Mark placed his palm gently on his son's brow. The burning heat of the past days had subsided to a mild warmth. Relief flooded through him so intensely that he had to brace himself against the wall. "You saved him," he said, his voice cracking. Maya shook her head. "Prayer saved him, and his own strength. He's a fighter, like his father. And his mother," Mark added softly. "Lila fought so hard to stay with us." Maya nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I've been talking to her," she admitted, "these past nights, asking her to help her son." Instead of finding this strange, Mark felt profound gratitude. While his own faith had faltered after Lila's death, Maya's remained unshakable. She had petitioned Lila as naturally as if his late wife were just in the next room, not separated by the veil between life and death. "Thank you," Mark said, the words entirely inadequate for what he felt. Maya carefully transferred the sleeping Noah to his arms. As she did, her hand brushed against Mark's, and for a breathless moment they were connected. Three souls linked by touch, by care, by something deeper than any of them could name. The crisis with Noah created a subtle shift in the household. Mark found himself lingering over breakfast rather than rushing to the office, treasuring the morning routine Maya had established. He began coming home in time for dinner more often than not, drawn by the warmth of family meals, where the twins chatted about their day, and Maya listened with genuine interest. One sunny afternoon, Mark arrived home early to find Maya and the twins in the backyard. Sophie was helping Maya plant spring bulbs in Lila's garden, her small hands covered in dirt as she carefully placed each bulb in the holes Maya had dug. Noah, fully recovered from his illness, was mowing the lawn with his toy lawnmower, following the straight lines of the gardener with intense concentration. Mark stood watching them, struck by the tableau they created. Not a replacement for the family he had lost, but something new that had grown in the fertile soil of grief and healing. As if sensing his presence, Maya looked up, shielding her eyes against the sun. When she saw him, her face brightened with a smile that sent an unexpected warmth through his chest. "Daddy." Sophie spotted him and came running, her dirty hands leaving prints on his suit as she hugged him. Once, he would have been bothered by the mess. Now, he simply lifted her into his arms, accepting the soil as a badge of her affection. "We're planting tulips," she informed him seriously. "Maya says they're sleeping now, but in spring, they'll wake up and wear pretty dresses." "Is that so?" Mark looked to Maya, who approached with Noah now by her side. "A child-friendly explanation of bulb dormancy," she said with a laugh. "Though I rather like the image of tulips in dresses myself." Noah tugged at Mark's pant leg. "I've been helping too, Daddy. I cut all the grass." Mark set Sophie down to pick up his son. "You did an excellent job, buddy. The straightest lines I've ever seen," Maya said. "I'm a good helper," Noah declared proudly, "just like her." "You certainly are," Mark agreed, his eyes meeting Maya's over Noah's head. "Maya helps us all, doesn't she?" Something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the roles they had fallen into, the family they had become without ever discussing it. For the first time since Lila's death, Mark felt a flicker of something that wasn't just gratitude or appreciation as he looked at Maya. It was a feeling he wasn't ready to name, wasn't sure he had the right to feel. Later that evening, Maya found him in his study, going through old photo albums. "The twins are asleep," she said, hesitating at the doorway. "Sophie wants you to know," she said, her prayers for her mommy in heaven. Mark nodded, his throat tight. "Thank you for teaching them that, for helping them know Lila, even though they never really got the chance." Maya took a step into the room, her gaze falling on the album open in his lap. Wedding photos. Lila, radiant in white. Mark looking at her with unabashed adoration. "She was beautiful," Maya said softly. "She was," Mark agreed, inside and out. He closed the album carefully. "You would have liked each other, I think. She had your kindness." Maya smiled, though her eyes held a touch of sadness. "I'm sure I would have." She started to leave, then paused. Mark? Yes? I, Hopeno. I would never try to replace her, not in your heart and not in the twins. I know, Mark said, seeing her struggle for words. Lila will always be their mother. You've made sure of that with your stories and the way you speak of her. He stood, crossing to where Maya stood. But you're the one who kisses their scraped knees now. The one who knows that Sophie won't eat carrots unless they're cut into stars. And Noah needs his blue blanket to fall asleep. You're the one they run to when they're scared or happy or excited about a new discovery. Tears filled Maya's eyes. They call me Mama Maya sometimes, she confessed, as if it were a betrayal. I've tried to tell them. It's okay, Mark interrupted gently. It's more than okay. They need that. They need you. The unspoken words hung between them. I need you too. Maya reached out impulsively and squeezed his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. Good night, Mark. Long after she had gone, Mark stood in his study, looking out at the garden, where soon the bulbs Maya and Sophie had planted would bloom, continuing the cycle of life, of renewal, of hope. For the first time in 4 years, he allowed himself to think of Lila's final request, her plea for him to open his heart to love again. I think I'm beginning to understand, he whispered to Lila's memory. I think I'm finally beginning to understand what you meant. Chapter 4. Heart's Awakening. The twins' 4th birthday arrived on a perfect May morning, the kind Lila had always cherished. Mark woke early, his heart heavy with the bittersweet awareness that another milestone would pass without her. 4 years. 4 years since he had held her hand as she slipped away, since he had made that promise he was only now beginning to understand might be possible to keep. He made his way downstairs, expecting to find Maya already preparing for the day. Instead, the kitchen was empty. Though the coffee was brewed, following the sound of movement, Mark stepped onto the back patio and stopped, his breath catching in his throat. Maya stood in Lila's garden, the early morning light gilding her skin with a golden glow. She was placing candles around the stone bench, Lila's favorite spot to sit and read in the evenings. 4 candles, Mark realized, 1 for each year since Lila had died, 1 for each year of the twins' lives. As if sensing his presence, Maya turned. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him standing there. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I should have asked before. No, Mark interrupted, moving closer. What are you doing? Maya looked down at the candles, uncertainty crossing her features. In Jamaica, we believe the dead are still with us on important days. She hesitated, then continued with quiet determination. I thought Lila should be part of today's celebration, that the twins should know their mother is present for their birthday, even if they can't see her. Mark stood speechless, overwhelmed by her thoughtfulness, by her intuitive understanding of what this day meant. Not just a birthday, but the anniversary of the most profound loss and gift of his life. I can remove them if you'd rather not. Leave them, Mark said, his voice rough with emotion. Lila would love it. She always said a garden should have candles. Maya smiled, relief softening her features. The twins are still sleeping. I was going to wake them with birthday songs at 7, as we discussed. Mark nodded, then impulsively stepped forward and took her hand. Thank you, Maya. Not just for this, but for everything. These past 3 years, you've brought life back into this home when I thought it was gone forever. Her fingers tightened around his briefly before she pulled away, a flush darkening her cheeks. The twins make it easy to give love, she said softly. And so do you, Mark. Before he could respond, she turned and headed back to the house. I should start breakfast, birthday pancakes with strawberry faces, as requested by the birthday girl and boy. Mark remained in the garden for a long moment, watching the gentle flame of the candles dance in the morning breeze. For the first time, standing there among Lila's beloved flowers, the weight of grief felt lighter, as if it had transformed from a crushing burden into something he could carry within a heart that was, impossibly, beginning to heal. The birthday celebration was everything the twins could have wished for. Maya had transformed the backyard into a wonderland of balloons and streamers, with a small table set up for the twins' friends from preschool. She had baked a cake shaped like a castle, complete with ice cream cone turrets and a moat of blue jelly. Mark watched in amazement as Maya orchestrated games, served food, and made each child feel special, all while keeping an eye on the twins to ensure they were enjoying their day. His parents, Edward and Margaret, had sent lavish gifts but declined to attend, still uncomfortable with the family dynamic that had evolved. His sister, Claire, however, came with armfuls of presents and a warm embrace for Maya. "You've worked miracles here," Claire whispered to Mark as they watched Maya lead the children in a game of musical statues. "I hardly recognize my niece and nephew, or you for that matter." Mark smiled, his eyes never leaving the scene before him. "She's remarkable with them." "Just with them?" Claire raised an eyebrow. Mark shot her a warning look. "Don't start, Claire." "What?" she said innocently. "I'm just saying what anyone with eyes can see. That woman loves those children like they're her own. And the way she looks at you when she thinks no one is watching, drop it," Mark said firmly. Though his heart had begun to beat faster, "Maya is the twins' nanny, an exceptional one. But that's all." Claire sighed. "You're impossible, Marky. Lila wouldn't want." "Don't," he cut her off. "Don't tell me what Lila would want." Claire held up her hands in surrender. "Fine, I'll butt out. But just remember, little brother, life is for the living." As the party wound down and the last of the little guests were collected by their parents, Mark found himself helping Maya clean up while the twins explored their new toys under Claire's supervision. "You outdid yourself," he told her, gathering discarded wrapping paper. "I don't know how you managed all this and kept it a surprise." Maya smiled, fatigue evident in the slight slump of her shoulders despite her cheerful expression. It was worth every second to see their faces. Sophie's eyes when she saw the cake? Pure magic. And Noah actually participated in the games instead of watching from the sidelines. "That's all you, Maya." She shook her head. "He's coming out of his shell naturally. He's so much like you. Thoughtful. Observing everything before deciding to join in." Mark paused in his cleaning. "You think I'm like that?" "Absolutely," Maya laughed. "You watch, you analyze, you plan. Noah does the same thing, just with blocks and puzzles instead of business deals." The casual observation struck Mark. Maya saw him, really saw him. In a way few people ever had, except Lila. She noticed things about him and his children that even he sometimes missed. As they finished cleaning, Maya reached for a large garbage bag at the same moment Mark did. Their hands collided, fingers brushing together. Unlike the brief, accidental touches they'd shared before, neither of them immediately pulled away. For one breathless moment, they remained connected. Maya's slender fingers beneath Mark's broader ones, warmth passing between them. Mark looked up, finding Maya's amber eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't name. His gaze dropped to her lips, slightly parted in surprise. And for a wild, disorienting second, he imagined leaning forward to taste them. The sound of Noah calling for Maya broke the spell. She withdrew her hand quickly, a flush spreading across her cheeks. "I should see what he needs," she said, her voice uncharacteristically flustered. Mark nodded, his own heart racing as if he'd run a marathon. What had just happened? What had he almost done? That evening, after the twins had finally fallen asleep, surrounded by new toys, Maya organized a small private celebration. She carried a beautiful cake into the dining room, where Mark waited, puzzled by her request that he stay up for one more surprise. "What's this?" he asked as she set the cake before him. It was simple but elegant, decorated with buttercream roses that looked remarkably like the ones in Lila's garden. "A birthday cake for Lila," Maya said softly. "I thought we could sing to her, just the three of us. The twins helped me make it this morning before you woke up. I saved it for after they were asleep so you wouldn't have to pretend to be strong." Mark finished for her, emotion clogging his throat. "Maya nodet." They know today is their mommy's birthday, too. The day she went to heaven. Sophie asked if we could send a cake to heaven, and I told her we would share it here, and Lila would know. Mark stared at the cake, unable to speak past the knot in his throat. Each year on this day, he had secluded himself after the twins were asleep, unwilling to share the depths of his grief. Yet here was Maya, acknowledging not just his children's loss but his own, creating space for remembrance rather than just mourning. "I put 4 candles for the years since she's been gone, and one in the center for her spirit. That's still with you all," Maya explained, lighting the candles with a long match. In the flickering glow, Mark could see that Maya's hands trembled slightly. She was nervous, he realized, afraid she had overstepped, that she had intruded on his private grief. "Maya," he said, reaching for her hand. I don't have words for what this means to me." Relief softened her features. "Would you like to sing, or just have a moment of silence?" "Let's sing," Mark decided. Lila loved music, especially off-key singing. He smiled at the memory. She couldn't carry a tune to save her life, but that never stopped her. Together, they sang Happy Birthday softly, their voices blending in the quiet house. When the last note faded, Mark closed his eyes and made a silent wish before blowing out the candles. "Thank you for sending her to us, Lila. Thank you for making sure we weren't alone." Asterisk. As Maya cut the cake, placing a slice before him, Mark was struck by how naturally she had woven Lila into their lives, instead of trying to erase her memory. There was no jealousy, no competition, just a generous spirit that understood love wasn't diminished by being shared, only multiplied. "Try it," Maya encouraged. "Sophie insisted on adding extra vanilla because she heard you tell her once that it was her mother's favorite flavor." Mark took a bite and closed his eyes, momentarily transported. "It's perfect," he said when he could speak again. "It tastes like home." Maya's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the simple ritual of sharing food somehow sacred in the quiet house. "Tell me something about Lila that the twins don't know yet," Maya said eventually. "Something you're saving for when they're older." Mark considered the request, touched by Maya's continuing effort to keep Lila's memory alive. "She was terrified of spiders," he said with a small laugh. "Absolutely petrified. This successful businesswoman who could face down boardrooms of hostile executives would stand on a chair screaming if she saw even a tiny one." Maya laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Sophie's the same. Remember last week when she found one in the bathtub? Screamed the house down," Mark recalled, smiling at the memory. "Definitely her mother's daughter." They traded stories as they finished their cake, Mark sharing memories of Lila, Maya offering observations about how the twins carried their mother's traits. It was the most Mark had ever spoken about Lila without feeling like his heart was being torn open anew. Instead, each story felt like a gift he was passing on, preserving pieces of Lila through shared memories. When the cake was finished and the plates cleared away, they found themselves standing close together in the kitchen. The house was silent except for the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway and the soft hum of the refrigerator. "Thank you," Mark said simply, the words inadequate for the depth of his gratitude. Maya looked up at him, her amber eyes reflecting the warm kitchen light. "You don't need to thank me, Mark. Your family, the twins." She hesitated, then continued softly. "Being here with all of you feels like a gift I don't deserve." "You deserve every happiness, Maya," Mark said, suddenly needing her to understand how much she had changed their lives. "What you've done for my children, for me, I can never repay." "It was never about repayment," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was standing so close now that Mark could smell the light jasmine of her perfume, could see the faint freckles dusting her cheekbones. Mark's hand moved of its own accord, reaching up to tuck a stray curl behind her ear. Maya's breath caught, but she didn't pull away. His fingers lingered against her cheek, warm and soft beneath his touch. Time seemed suspended as they stood there, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. Mark felt himself leaning closer, drawn by something more powerful than thought or reason. Maya's eyes drifted closed, her lips parting slightly in anticipation. The sudden wail of Sophie's voice over the baby monitor shattered the moment. "Mama Maya, I had a bad dream." Maya stepped back immediately, the spell broken. "I should go to her," she said, not meeting Mark's eyes. "Maya," Mark began, not sure what he wanted to say, only knowing he couldn't leave this moment unacknowledged. She paused at the doorway, finally looking back at him. "It's okay, Mark," she said softly. "We don't have to talk about it. Good night." As she disappeared up the stairs, Mark remained in the kitchen, his heart pounding with the awareness of what had almost happened and the realization that, for the first time since Lila's death, he had wanted to kiss a woman and felt no guilt in the wanting. Upstairs, he could hear Maya's soothing voice as she comforted Sophie, the same gentle tone she used with both twins, with the same boundless love that had transformed their broken family. "Lila," he whispered to the empty kitchen, "I think I'm finally ready to keep my promise. Chapter 5. Family Wounds. The annual Ellison family dinner had been a tradition since before Mark was born, held at his parents' sprawling Connecticut estate. Each summer, it was an occasion his mother, Margaret, treated with the gravity of a diplomatic summit. Attendance was mandatory, dress was formal, and conversations were to remain pleasant, regardless of underlying tensions. In the years since Lila's death, Mark had attended with the twins but left early, using their bedtime as an excuse to escape the suffocating sympathy and thinly veiled suggestions about moving forward appropriately. This year, however, felt different. The twins were older now, excited to see their grandparents' estate with its swimming pool and elaborate gardens. And for the first time, Maya would be joining them, a decision Mark had made despite his mother's pointed suggestion that the help could have the evening off. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Maya asked as their car turned onto the long, tree-lined driveway leading to the Ellison estate. She smoothed her deep blue dress nervously, a simple but elegant garment that complemented her warm brown skin. "Of course it is," Mark reassured her, though his own stomach twisted with apprehension. "The twins would be devastated if you didn't come. Besides, it's just dinner." In the back seat, Sophie and Noah were vibrating with excitement, dressed in coordinating outfits that Maya had carefully selected. "Will Grandma have cake?" Noah asked, straightening the little bow tie he'd insisted on wearing because it made him look like Daddy. "I'm sure there will be dessert," Maya answered, turning to help him fix the bow tie that had already come askew. "But remember what we talked about. Say please and thank you, and don't ask for seconds until everyone has been served." Mark watched the interaction in the rearview mirror, warmth spreading through his chest. In the 4 months since the twins' birthday, since that almost kiss in the kitchen, a new awareness had grown between him and Maya. Neither had spoken of it directly, but he often caught her looking at him with an expression that made his heart race, just as he found himself creating excuses to be near her, to talk with her, to simply exist in her orbit. As they pulled up to the imposing colonial-style mansion, Claire emerged to greet them, her face lighting up at the sight of the twins. "There are my favorite niece and nephew," she exclaimed, opening the back doors to unbuckle the children from their car seats. "We're your only niece and nephew, Aunt Claire," Sophie pointed out with the logical precision she'd inherited from her father. Claire laughed, scooping Sophie into her arms. "Smartest, too." Her eyes shifted to Maya, who was helping Noah from his seat. "Maya, you look beautiful. That color is stunning on you." Maya smiled gratefully at the warm welcome. "Thank you for including me." "Of course," Claire said with a meaningful glance at Mark. "You're family now." The word hung in the air between them, family, with all its implications and complications. Before Mark could respond, the front door opened, revealing Margaret in a perfectly tailored cream suit, her silver hair swept into an immaculate chignon. "There you are," she called, her smile genuine for the twins, but tightening slightly when her gaze fell on Maya. "We were beginning to wonder if you'd be late." "Right on time, Mother," Mark replied, checking his watch pointedly. He placed a hand lightly on Maya's back as they approached the house, a silent show of solidarity that didn't go unnoticed by his mother. Margaret bent to kiss the twins, exclaiming over how much they'd grown, before straightening to address Maya with cool politeness. "Miss Carter, how kind of you to join us. I hope you'll be comfortable." The subtle emphasis on comfortable spoke volumes, a reminder that Maya was entering a world far removed from her own background. Mark felt her stiffen slightly beneath his hand. "Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Ellison," Maya replied with unfailing grace. "Your home is beautiful." Inside, Edward Ellison greeted them in the vast foyer, his booming voice filling the space as he lifted each twin in turn, commenting on how strong Noah was getting and how much Sophie resembled Lila, an observation that caused a momentary shadow to cross Mark's face. If Edward noticed Maya at all, he gave no indication beyond a curt nod when Mark introduced her. The afternoon proceeded with forced pleasantness, the twins providing much-needed distraction as they explored the gardens with their grandfather and swam in the pool under Claire's watchful eye. Mark found himself constantly searching for Maya, relieved each time he found her, worried about leaving her alone too long with his parents. She handled herself with quiet dignity, answering Margaret's thinly veiled interrogations about her background with straightforward honesty, neither apologizing for nor embellishing her humble Jamaican upbringing. Dinner was served at precisely 7 o'clock in the formal dining room, where the table gleamed with sterling silver and Waterford crystal. The twins, despite their excitement, behaved impeccably, using their best manners under Maya's gentle guidance. Mark noticed his mother watching, as Sophie automatically turned to Maya for approval after using her napkin correctly, and the way Noah whispered, "Thank you, Mama Maya," when she cut his meat into manageable pieces. The air in the room seemed to chill noticeably at Noah's words. Margaret's fork paused midway to her mouth, and Edward's bushy eyebrows rose toward his hairline. "Mama Maya," Margaret repeated, her tone making the affectionate name sound like an accusation. Mark tensed, but Maya spoke before he could. "It started when they were younger," she explained calmly. "We've explained that their real mama is in heaven, but they began calling me this on their own. We felt it was important to let them express their feelings naturally." "We felt," Edward interjected, looking at Mark with undisguised disapproval. "Son, surely you can see the confusion this causes. These children have a mother, Leela, and encouraging them to call the help Mama undermines her memory." Mark's hand tightened around his fork. "Lila will always be their mother," he said with controlled anger. "Maya has never tried to replace her, quite the opposite. She keeps Lila's memory alive for the twins every day." "It's hardly appropriate," Margaret persisted. "What must people think?" "I don't give a damn what people think, Mother," Mark replied, his voice low enough that the twins, now engaged in a whispered conversation of their own, wouldn't hear. "Language, Mark," Margaret admonished automatically. "All I'm saying is that there are boundaries. Miss Carter works for you. She is an employee. Allowing the children to form such attachments will only lead to complications when she eventually leaves." Maya's face remained composed, but Mark saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes before she lowered them to her plate. "Maya isn't going anywhere," Mark said firmly. A heavy silence fell over the table, broken only by the clink of silver against china and the twins' oblivious chatter. Claire, sensing the tension, engaged the children in a game of identifying the different flowers in the centerpiece. When the main course was cleared, Margaret stood. "Claire, why don't you take the children to the kitchen? Cook has prepared special ice cream sundaes for them." The twins cheered, all too happy to be excused from the grown-up table. Maya made to rise as well, but Margaret's next words froze her in place. "Miss Carter, please remain. I think it's time we had a frank discussion." Once the children were out of earshot, Margaret wasted no time. "Mark, your father and I have been patient. We've given you time to grieve, to find your footing as a single father, but this situation has gone far enough." "What situation would that be, Mother?" Mark asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Don't be obtuse," Margaret snapped. "Anyone with eyes can see what's happening here. You've allowed this young woman to insinuate herself into your home, into your children's affections, into my heart." Mark finished for her, surprising even himself with the admission. "Is that what you're afraid of, Mother? That I might have feelings for Maya?" Maya's sharp intake of breath was audible in the tense silence that followed. She stared at Mark, her eyes wide with shock, and something else hope perhaps, or fear. "She's not suitable," Edward said bluntly, entering the conversation. "We have nothing against Miss Carter personally. But surely you can see the impropriety. She's your employee, Mark. She's from an entirely different background. What would Lila think?" "Lila would be grateful," Mark replied, a calm certainty filling him as he realized the truth of his words. "Grateful that our children are loved, grateful that they have someone in their lives who puts their happiness above everything else." "Be reasonable," Margaret pleaded, her perfect composure finally cracking. "Think of your position, of the company, of the children's future. We're not being cruel. We're being practical. If you need companionship, there are plenty of suitable women we could introduce you to. Charlotte Waverly has been asking about you, and her family has connections that would benefit Ellison Industries enormously." Mark laughed without humor. "So that's what this is about. Business connections? Did you arrange a merger when you introduced me to Lila too?" "Don't be ridiculous," his father huffed. "Lila was different. She was one of us." "One of us," Mark repeated slowly. "And Maya isn't because she wasn't born into wealth, because her skin is a different color, because she comes from Jamaica instead of Greenwich." "You're twisting our words," Margaret said, but her gaze slid away from his, confirming his accusations. I'm not twisting anything. I'm finally seeing clearly. Mark stood, throwing his napkin onto the table. Maya has brought joy back into my home when I thought it was gone forever. She has loved my children when I was too broken to give them everything they needed. She honors Lila's memory every single day. He turned to Maya, who sat frozen in her chair, tears shimmering in her eyes. And yes, I have feelings for her. Feelings I've been fighting because I was afraid of betraying Lila, afraid of disrupting the twins' lives, afraid of exactly this reaction from my family. Mark, Maya whispered. Her voice choked with emotion. I'm sorry it took so long for me to say it, he told her softly before turning back to his parents. I won't apologize for what I feel. I won't pretend Maya is anything less than what she is, the heart of our home, the woman who saved us all. Margaret stood, her face pale with anger. If you pursue this infatuation, you'll regret it. The board won't look kindly on such an unconventional relationship. Your father still has considerable influence. Are you threatening me, Mother? Mark asked incredulously. Using the company against me because you don't approve of who I care about. We're trying to protect you, Edward insisted, and the twins. Think of how this will affect them, the questions they'll face. The only question that matters is whether they're loved, Mark replied. And they are. By me and by Maya. The rest is just noise. The sound of running feet interrupted the confrontation as Sophie burst back into the dining room, her face alight with excitement. Mama Maya, Grandma has a special dollhouse in the library that was my mommy's when she was little. Can we play with it? All eyes turned to the little girl, who stood oblivious to the tension in the room, her gaze fixed expectantly on Maya. In that moment, the contrast between the adult's prejudices and a child's pure acceptance couldn't have been clearer. Maya rose from her chair, her composure regained as she focused on Sophie. Of course, sweetheart. Let's go see it. As Maya took Sophie's hand and left the room, she finally met Mark's gaze, her eyes communicating a maelstrom of emotions, gratitude, fear, hope, and something deeper that made his heart swell. She slipped past him, her shoulder brushing his arm in a touch that felt like both a question and a promise. When they were gone, Mark faced his parents again. I don't want to fight with you. You're my family, and I love you. But I need you to understand something. He paused, making sure he had their full attention. Lila was my first love, and part of me will always belong to her. But Maya is my second chance. The twins' second chance. If you can't accept that, if you can't see past your prejudices to the extraordinary woman she is, then you're the ones who will be missing out. You're making a mistake, Edward warned. No, Mark said with quiet certainty. For the first time in 4 years, I'm not. He left the dining room to find Maya and the children, leaving his parents to contemplate the choice he had already made. In the library, he paused in the doorway, watching as Maya knelt beside Sophie at the antique dollhouse, helping her arrange tiny furniture while Noah and Claire built a fort with sofa cushions nearby. Maya looked up and saw him, uncertainty flashing across her face. He smiled, trying to convey that despite everything, he didn't regret a word he'd said. She returned his smile tentatively, a fragile hope in her expression that made him want to cross the room and take her in his arms. Instead, he joined Noah and Claire, helping with the fort while keeping Maya in his peripheral vision. They would need to talk later, away from his parents' house, away from little ears that might not understand the complexities of what was unfolding. You okay? Claire murmured as they balanced a cushion on top of their structure. Mark nodded. Better than I've been in a long time, actually. His sister squeezed his arm. About damn time, little brother. About damn time. As the evening drew to a close and they prepared to leave, Mark's parents maintained a cold civility that boded ill for future family gatherings. Margaret bent to kiss the twins goodbye but barely acknowledged Maya. Edward shook Mark's hand formally, his expression making it clear that their conversation was far from over. In the car driving home, the twins quickly fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day's emotions and activities. Silence stretched between Mark and Maya until she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Did you mean what you said in there about having feelings for me? Mark kept his eyes on the road, afraid that if he looked at her, he might lose the courage to be completely honest. Yes, I've been fighting it for months, maybe longer. I didn't want to complicate things, to risk what we have. The twins need you. I need you, but not just as their nanny. Maya was quiet for so long that Mark finally glanced over, worried he'd said too much. She was looking out the window, tears streaming silently down her face. Maya, he asked, anxiety tightening his chest. I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable. We can forget I said anything, go back to how things were. No, she interrupted, turning to face him with eyes shining in the dim light of the car. I don't want to go back. I've been fighting my feelings too, telling myself it was wrong, that I was betraying Lila's memory, that I was just the nanny and had no right to love you or the twins the way I do. Mark's heart raced at her words. You love us? Maya's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. How could I not? You three became my world from the moment I stepped into your home. Mark reached across the console to take her hand, intertwining their fingers. We have a lot to figure out. My parents won't make this easy. I know, Maya acknowledged. And the twins, they have to come first in all of this. Always, Mark agreed. We'll take it slow, make sure they're okay every step of the way. They drove in silence for a while, hands still joined, each lost in thoughts of what might lie ahead. When they reached home, Mark carried Noah while Maya took Sophie, the two adults moving in the synchronized rhythm they'd developed over years of caring for the children together. After tucking the twins into their beds, they met in the hallway, suddenly shy with each other despite the emotions they'd confessed. Good night, Mark, Maya said softly, turning toward her room. Maya, he called after her, his voice low enough not to wake the children. When she turned back, he crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, cupping her face gently in his hands. I'm not afraid anymore, he whispered. And then he kissed her. A tender, questioning kiss that she answered by wrapping her arms around his neck and drawing him closer. When they finally parted, both breathless, Maya rested her forehead against his. Neither am I, she whispered back. They separated reluctantly, aware of the sleeping children nearby and the need to tread carefully as they navigated this new territory. But as Mark watched Maya disappear into her room, closing the door softly behind her, he felt something he'd thought lost forever. The lightness of a heart opening to love again, the quiet certainty that somehow, against all odds, he was keeping his promise to Lila after all. Chapter 6. Souls Laid Bare. In the weeks following the disastrous dinner at the Ellison estate, Mark and Maya moved cautiously through their changing relationship. By unspoken agreement, they kept their growing feelings confined to private moments, a lingering touch when passing in the hallway, stolen kisses after the twins were asleep, quiet conversations on the patio beneath the stars. To the outside world, nothing had changed, but within the walls of their home, everything had transformed. Maya continued her role as nanny with the same loving devotion as always, while Mark made subtle adjustments to ensure no one could accuse him of taking advantage of his position. He'd instructed his accountant to increase her salary substantially, despite her protests, and made it clear to everyone from his assistant to the housekeeper that Maya was to be treated with the utmost respect. The twins, absorbed in their 4-year-old concerns, seemed oblivious to the shift in the adults' relationship. If they noticed that Daddy smiled more often or that Mama Maya's cheeks flushed pink when he entered a room, they made no comment. Their world remained secure and loving, exactly as Mark and Maya intended. But outside, forces were not so easily placated. A week after the confrontation, Mark received a call from his father. The board wants to meet, Edward said without preamble. Several members have expressed concern about the company's direction. Mark, sitting in his office overlooking Manhattan, felt his jaw tighten. The company has never been more profitable. We've increased market share by 12% this quarter alone. This isn't about profits, Edward replied, his tone making it clear what it was about. It's about leadership, stability. The Ellison name has always stood for traditional values. Traditional values, Mark repeated flatly, like judging people based on their background rather than their character. Edward's sigh crackled through the phone line. Don't be dramatic, Mark. No one's judging. We're simply concerned about appearances. If you insist on pursuing this relationship, do it discreetly. Keep it out of the public eye. I'm not ashamed of Maya, Mark said, anger rising in his chest. And I won't hide her away like some dirty secret. Then prepare for a fight, Edward warned. The board meeting is next Thursday. I suggest you come ready to defend more than just your quarterly numbers." The call ended with a click, leaving Mark staring at the skyline, fury and determination warring within him. He'd known his parents wouldn't accept his feelings for Maya easily, but he hadn't anticipated them using the company as leverage. Ellison Industries was his legacy to the twins, the company his grandfather had built from nothing. The thought of it being used against him made his blood boil. That evening, he returned home later than usual, his mind still churning with strategies for the upcoming board meeting. The house was quiet when he entered. The usual sounds of children playing were noticeably absent. "Maya," he called, setting down his briefcase. On the patio, her voice answered from the back of the house. Mark found her sitting alone, a mug of tea cradled in her hands as she watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Something in her posture, the slight hunch of her shoulders, the way she curled in on herself, set off warning bells in his mind. "Where are the twins?" he asked, taking the chair beside her. "Your sister picked them up for a movie night. They were very excited about popcorn and staying up past bedtime." Maya's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I hope that's okay." She called this afternoon and offered. "Of course it's okay," Mark assured her, reaching for her hand. "Are you all right? You seem distant." Maya stared into her mug for a long moment before speaking. "Your mother called today?" Mark stiffened. "What did she say?" "Nothing overtly cruel," Maya replied, finally meeting his gaze. "She was very polite. She invited me to lunch tomorrow to clear the air," she said. "You don't have to go," Mark said immediately. "Whatever game she's playing, I told her yes," Maya interrupted gently. "Mark, running away won't solve anything. If we're really going to if this is real between us, then I need to try to build some kind of relationship with your family." Mark marveled at her courage, her willingness to face the disapproval and prejudice that his family represented. "It is real," he promised, squeezing her hand. "But my mother can be brutal when she wants to be. I don't want you hurt." Maya's smile was tinged with sadness. "I've faced worse." She hesitated, then added, "There's something else. I received a letter from my mother today. She's not doing well. The diabetes is affecting her eyesight now." Concern immediately replaced Mark's anger. He knew how close Maya was to her mother, how much of her salary she sent home each month to support her family. "Is there anything we can do? I could arrange for specialists, fly her here for treatment." "It's not that simple," Maya said, shaking her head. "My mother is proud. She wouldn't accept that kind of help, especially not from—" She trailed off, looking away. "From me?" Mark finished for her. "Because I'm white? Because I'm wealthy? Because she doesn't know you?" Maya corrected gently. In her mind, "You're still just my employer." The words hung between them, highlighting the complexity of their situation. In one world, his world, Maya was the nanny who had stepped beyond her role. In another world, hers, he was the rich white boss who might be taking advantage of her. "We should change that," Mark decided. "I could go with you, next time you visit Jamaica, meet your family, let them get to know me." Maya's expression softened with surprise and gratitude. "You would do that?" "Of course I would," Mark said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Maya, too, falling in love with you. Meeting your family, understanding where you come from, that's important to me." The words had slipped out without planning, but Mark realized as soon as he said them that they were true. He was falling in love with Maya Carter, perhaps had been for longer than he was ready to admit. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Mark," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I never expected this. When I came here, I was just looking for a job that would help me support my family. I never imagined, neither did I," Mark admitted, moving his chair closer to hers. "After Lila died, I thought that part of my life was over. I couldn't imagine loving anyone else. But you didn't replace her. You helped me heal enough to find room in my heart again." A single tear slipped down Maya's cheek. Mark reached up to brush it away, his thumb lingering on the softness of her skin. "I'm falling in love with you, too," she confessed. "And it terrifies me." "Why?" Mark asked, though he thought he knew the answer. "Because of the twins," Maya said, confirming his suspicion. "They've already lost one mother. If this doesn't work, if your family tears us apart, or if my mother needs me back in Jamaica, I couldn't bear to hurt them again." The fear she voiced was the same one that had kept Mark awake at night, the same one that made him proceed with such caution despite the strength of his feelings. The twins had to come first, always. "We'll be careful," he promised. "We'll take things slowly. Make sure they understand that no matter what happens between us, you will always be in their lives." Maya nodded, though doubt still shadowed her eyes. "And your family, the company Mark, I heard you arguing on the phone earlier. I know they're using Ellison Industries against you." Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "The board is meeting next week. My father has implied that my personal life might become an issue. Because of me," Maya said softly. "Because they're stuck in the past," Mark corrected firmly. "The company will be fine. I've prepared for this kind of challenge." Before Maya could respond, the sky opened up without warning, a summer thunderstorm sending rain cascading onto the patio. They jumped up, Maya grabbing her mug as Mark quickly folded the cushions, both of them laughing as they darted inside, already half soaked from the sudden downpour. In the kitchen, Mark handed Maya a dish towel to dry her face. Their laughter faded as they stood close together, the sound of rain drumming against the windows creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. "You're soaked," Maya observed, reaching up to brush wet hair from Mark's forehead. "So are you," he replied, his gaze tracing the way her damp shirt clung to her curves. He swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how alone they were in the house. Maya seemed to read his thoughts, a blush coloring her cheeks as she stepped back slightly. "I should change," she murmured. Mark nodded, respecting the boundary she was asserting. "Me, too. Maybe after, we could watch a movie, take advantage of the kid-free evening?" Maya's smile returned. "I'd like that." An hour later, they sat on opposite ends of the sofa, a bowl of popcorn between them, some romantic comedy playing on the television that neither was really watching. Outside, the storm had intensified, rain lashing against the windows while thunder rumbled in the distance. "Your mother will likely try to convince you tomorrow that I'm not good for the twins," Mark said suddenly, breaking the pretense that they were focused on the film, "that I'm just using you or that I'll tire of you eventually." Maya turned to face him, drawing her knees up to her chest. "I know. And my father will tell the board that my judgment is compromised, that I'm letting personal feelings affect business decisions." She nodded, her expression solemn. "That seems likely." Mark shifted closer, moving the popcorn to the coffee table. "I need you to know that none of that matters to me. The company, my parents' approval, I'd give it all up in a heartbeat before I'd give up what we're building here." "You don't mean that," Maya said gently. "Ellison Industries is your legacy, your children's birthright." "Some legacies aren't worth the cost," Mark replied. "I've spent 4 years rebuilding a life for myself and the twins after losing Lila. What good is a company if we're not happy? What good is wealth if it comes with conditions on who we can love?" Maya reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. "We'll find a way through this together." The sudden crash of thunder directly overhead made them both jump. At that moment, the lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely, plunging the house into darkness. "Perfect timing," Mark muttered, fumbling for his phone to use as a flashlight. "The generator should kick in." Another boom of thunder shook the house, and from upstairs came a sound that made both of their hearts stop, terrified screaming. "Twins!" Maya gasped, already on her feet. Mark's confusion lasted only a split second before realization dawned. They must have come home early. "Claire has a key." They raced upstairs, guided by the dim light of Mark's phone and the continuing screams coming from the twins' bedroom. When they burst through the door, they found Sophie and Noah huddled together in Sophie's bed, clutching each other and sobbing in terror as another crash of thunder rattled the windows. Hey, it's okay," Mark soothed, rushing to sit on the edge of the bed. "It's just a storm." "Daddy," Noah cried, launching himself into his father's arms. "The sky is angry." Sophie reached for Maya with equal desperation. "Mama Maya, we're scared." Maya gathered the little girl close, stroking her hair. "Shh, it's all right. Daddy and I are here now." "Why are you home so early?" Mark asked, rocking Noah gently. "We thought you were with Claire." The movie theater lost power, came Claire's voice from the doorway. She stood holding a flashlight, her expression apologetic. "I tried calling, but the lines must be down. The twins were so frightened by the storm, I thought it best to bring them home. You did the right thing, Maya assured her. Thank you for getting them back safely. Claire's gaze moved between Mark and Maya, a knowing smile playing at her lips. I'll head out now that they're with you. Better get home before the roads flood. After Claire left, another deafening crash of thunder sent the twins into fresh fits of crying. Make it stop, Sophie wailed, burrowing deeper into Maya's embrace. The storm will pass soon, Maya promised, though the howling wind suggested otherwise. In the meantime, how about we make it into an adventure? The children looked at her dubiously through their tears. We'll build a fort, Maya continued, her voice warm with enthusiasm. Right here on the bed with all the pillows and blankets. It will be like a safe little cave where the thunder can't get us. Mark caught on immediately. And we can tell stories and sing songs until we fall asleep. All of us? Noah asked hopefully. You too, Daddy? All of us, Mark confirmed. One big family sleepover. The word family hung in the air, significant in a way it hadn't been before. Maya's eyes met Mark's over the twins' heads, a silent question in them that he answered with a smile and a nod. They spent the next 20 minutes constructing an elaborate fort, using the bed as a foundation, draping sheets over chairs and securing them with books. Mark found battery-operated lanterns in the emergency kit, which cast a warm, comforting glow inside their fabric cave. Pillows and stuffed animals created a nest in the middle where they all settled. The twins between Mark and Maya. Tell us a story, Mama Maya, Sophie requested, her fear forgotten in the coziness of their creation. What kind of story would you like? Maya asked, smiling as Noah's head drooped sleepily against her arm. A love story, Sophie decided, surprising both adults. Like in the princess books. Maya glanced at Mark, who raised an eyebrow in amusement. A love story it is, she agreed. Once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a far-off land. As Maya wove a tale of a princess who crossed oceans to help a sad king and his 2 children, Mark watched her face in the soft lantern light, mesmerized by the animation in her expression, the tenderness in her voice. The twins hung on every word, their eyes growing heavier as the story progressed, until finally both were asleep, curled against Maya like puppies seeking warmth. That was some story, Mark whispered when she finished, careful not to wake the children, especially the part where the princess helped the king remember how to laugh again. Maya blushed. It was just a fairy tale. Was it? Mark asked softly. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but within their makeshift fort, a different kind of electricity crackled between them. Careful not to disturb the sleeping twins, Mark reached across, his fingers brushing Maya's cheek. I meant what I said earlier, he murmured. I'm falling in love with you, Maya Carter. And I don't care who knows it, not my parents, not the board, not anyone. Maya turned her face to press a kiss against his palm. I love you too, Mark Ellison, she whispered back. I've tried not to, tried to remember my place. But my heart wouldn't listen. Your place is here, Mark said firmly. With us, if that's what you want. Maya looked down at the sleeping children, then back to Mark. More than anything, she confessed. In the dim light of their shelter, surrounded by the innocent sleep of the twins they both loved, Mark and Maya sealed their declaration with a kiss that bridged world shifts of privilege and loss, hers of sacrifice and hope. The storm outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the 4 of them in this perfect, fragile moment of newfound family. As they pulled apart, Sophie stirred slightly between them, murmuring in her sleep before settling again. Maya smiled, brushing a golden curl from the little girl's forehead. We should sleep, too, she whispered. Tomorrow will bring its own storms to weather. Mark nodded, understanding she meant more than just the weather. Between his mother's lunch invitation and the looming board meeting, challenges awaited them on all sides. But for now, in this magical fort they'd built together, none of that mattered. Whatever comes, he promised, we face it together. Maya extended her hand across the sleeping children, and Mark took it, their fingers interlacing in a silent pledge. As the real storm gradually subsided outside, they drifted to sleep, still holding hands, their newly acknowledged love creating a shelter far stronger than any made of sheets and chairs, a sanctuary of the heart, where all 4 of them could finally, truly heal. In the morning, Mark woke first, momentarily disoriented by the fabric walls surrounding him and the weight of Noah sprawled across his chest. The events of the previous night came flooding back, the storm, the fort, and most importantly, the words he and Maya had finally spoken aloud. "I love you." 3 words he'd thought he might never say again after Lila died. Yet they had felt so right, so true, when spoken to Maya. He turned his head carefully. Finding Maya still asleep, Sophie curled against her side. In the soft morning light filtering through the sheets, they looked like a Renaissance painting, maternal love captured in the protective curve of Maya's arm around Sophie, in the peaceful trust of the child's face against her shoulder. Mark felt a swell of emotion so powerful it nearly overwhelmed him. This was his family now, not a replacement for what he'd lost, but something new and precious that had grown from the ashes of his grief. Lila would always be the twins' mother, his first love, but Maya was their future. As if sensing his gaze, Maya's eyes fluttered open, immediately finding his. A soft smile spread across her face, shy yet radiant with the newfound acknowledgement between them. "Good morning," she whispered. "Good morning," he whispered back, wishing he could reach across to touch her but unwilling to disturb the sleeping twins. They lay in comfortable silence for a few minutes, simply absorbing the perfection of the moment. The peaceful breathing of the children, the morning light, the intimacy of waking up together for the first time, even if it was in a makeshift fort with 2 small bodies between them. "No regrets?" Mark asked softly, suddenly needing to be sure that last night's declarations hadn't been influenced by the storm's drama or the emotional vulnerability of comforting the twins. Maya's eyes held his, clear and certain. "Not one," she promised. "You?" "It took me so long to tell you how I feel," Mark replied. "We've wasted so much time." "Not wasted," Maya corrected gently. "We needed that time to heal, to grow, to be sure, for the twins' sake and for our own." As always, her wisdom humbled him. Maya understood instinctively what had taken him years to learn, that love couldn't be rushed, that healing had its own timeline, that some things were worth waiting for. Noah stirred then, his eyes opening and immediately widening with delight at finding himself still in the fort. "It didn't disappear," he exclaimed. Sitting up so suddenly he nearly headbutted Mark. Sophie woke at her brother's voice, her reaction equally enthusiastic. "We all slept together, like real camping." The peaceful moment between the adults gave way to the exuberant energy of 2 4-year-olds who had just discovered that waking up in a blanket fort was possibly the best thing ever. As Maya helped Sophie out of the tangle of blankets and Mark pretended to search for Noah's missing sock, which was, of course, on his hand where he'd deliberately hidden it, they exchanged glances of shared amusement and affection. Whatever challenges the day might bring Margaret Ellison's lunch invitation, the board's potential resistance, the complexities of blending their worlds, they would face them with the strength they had found in each other and in the love of these 2 remarkable children who had brought them together. For now, that was enough. More than enough, it was everything. Chapter 7. The Call Home. Autumn painted the Ellison estate in brilliant shades of orange and gold, a perfect backdrop for the happiness that had bloomed within its walls. In the 3 months since Mark and Maya had confessed their feelings, they had carefully navigated their changing relationship while maintaining stability for the twins. The children had accepted the subtle shift with the easy adaptability of youth, delighted to see more affection between the 2 adults they loved most in the world. Maya's lunch with Margaret Ellison had been civil but frosty, with Mark's mother making thinly veiled suggestions about Maya's options beyond being a nanny. Maya had maintained her dignity throughout, neither apologizing for her feelings nor rising to Margaret's bait. Her quiet strength had only deepened Mark's admiration for her. The board meeting had similarly failed to intimidate Mark. When several members raised concerns about his personal life affecting the company's image, Mark had calmly presented Ellison Industries' record profits under his leadership, then reminded them that his grandfather had built the company on the principle of judging people by their character rather than their background. The implied threat of his resignation had effectively silenced further opposition. On this particular Sunday morning, Mark watched from the kitchen doorway as Maya taught the twins to make Jamaican coconut bread, her laughter mingling with theirs as flour dusted all 3 of their faces. He marveled at how naturally they had become a family, how right it felt to see Maya with his children, not replacing Lila, but creating something new and beautiful alongside her memory. "Can we take some to Grandma and Grandpa?" Sophie asked, carefully spreading coconut onto the dough as Maya had shown her. "Maybe it will make them not mad anymore." A shadow passed over Maya's face, but she recovered quickly. "That's a very sweet thought. Food has a way of bringing people together. They're not mad at you, sweetheart, Mark said, stepping into the kitchen. Sometimes grown-ups just need time to adjust to changes. The twins seemed satisfied with this explanation, returning their attention to the bread-making with characteristic enthusiasm. Mark moved to Maya's side, discreetly squeezing her hand. "You okay?" he murmured. She nodded, though concern lingered in her eyes. "I just hate that they feel caught in the middle. Children are so sensitive to tensions between adults. They love." "My parents will come around," Mark assured her, wishing he believed it himself. In truth, relations with his family had deteriorated further. His parents now refused to visit the house, insisting instead that Mark bring the twins to Connecticut without Maya, an arrangement he had firmly rejected. "They're missing so much," Maya said sadly, watching Noah meticulously line up coconut shreds on his portion of dough. "These amazing little people growing up right before our eyes." Mark was about to respond when Maya's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression brightening. "It's my mother. I've been trying to reach her all week." She wiped her hands and stepped into the hallway to take the call, leaving Mark to supervise the twins' increasingly creative approach to bread decoration. After several minutes, however, he noticed that Maya hadn't returned. Asking the twins to continue carefully, he went to check on her. He found her in the living room, clutching the phone to her chest, her face ashen. "Maya, what's wrong?" She looked up at him with eyes swimming in tears. "It's my mother," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's arranged a marriage for me in Jamaica." Mark felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath his feet. "What? How can she? You're an adult. She can't just—" "It's not like that," Maya interrupted, her accent thickening with emotion. "In my culture, parents often help arrange suitable matches. She's been talking with the family of David Brown. We grew up together in Kingston. His father owns a successful business there." "But you're here," Mark said, struggling to comprehend. "You're with us. With me." Maya's tears spilled over. "She expects me to return home next month. The engagement ceremony is already being planned." Her voice broke. "Mark, she's very ill, worse than she's been letting on. The doctors say she couldn't finish the sentence." Mark crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling Maya into his arms as she began to sob in earnest. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair, though nothing felt okay at all. "She said she wants to see me settled before." Maya pulled back enough to look into his face, her expression tormented. "She sacrificed everything for me. Worked 2 jobs after my father died. Went without medicine sometimes, so my siblings could have school supplies. How can I say no to her dying wish?" A cold knot formed in Mark's stomach. "Are you saying you're considering this arrangement?" "I don't know," Maya confessed, fresh tears falling. "I love you, Mark. I love the twins. But my mother, she's all alone except for my younger siblings. She's been the anchor of our family. I owe her everything." Before Mark could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway, her small face concerned. "Mama Maya, why are you crying?" Maya quickly wiped her tears, forcing a smile. "I just got some news from my family in Jamaica, sweetheart. My mother isn't feeling well." Sophie crossed to them, wrapping her arms around Maya's waist. "Is she going to heaven like my first mommy?" The innocent question shattered what remained of Maya's composure. She knelt to embrace Sophie properly, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. "I hope not, honey. Not for a long, long time." Mark watched, his heart breaking for Maya's impossible position, even as fear gripped him at the thought of losing her. The twins had already lost one mother. He couldn't bear to see them lose another. And he had only just found love again after thinking it impossible. The idea of Maya returning to Jamaica, marrying someone else. "Why don't you help Noah finish the bread?" he suggested gently to Sophie. "Mama Maya and I need to talk about grown-up things for a few minutes." When Sophie had reluctantly returned to the kitchen, Mark guided Maya to the sofa. "Tell me everything your mother said," he prompted, taking her hands in his. Maya took a shuddering breath. "She said she's been diagnosed with advanced kidney disease. The diabetes has damaged them beyond repair. She needs dialysis, but the rural clinic near our home can't provide it consistently." She looked down at their joined hands. "David's family has connections at the hospital in Kingston. They can get her the care she needs." Understanding dawned, bitter and cold. So this marriage isn't just about tradition. It's about securing medical care for your mother. Maya nodded miserably. She didn't say it outright, but yes, the Browns are influential. David's father sits on the hospital board. There are other ways to get your mother care, Mark said, his mind racing. I can arrange for specialists, for treatment in the States. It's not just the medical care, Maya interrupted gently. It's what she wants before. She couldn't finish the thought. In our culture, seeing your children settled is everything. My mother wants to know I'll be taken care of, that I'll have family around me when she's gone. You have family here, Mark insisted, squeezing her hands. Me. The twins. We're your family too. Maya's eyes filled with fresh tears. I know, but my mother doesn't see it that way. To her, you're my employer, not she trailed off. Not your what? Mark pressed, suddenly desperate to hear her say it. Future, Maya whispered. She doesn't see you as my future. The word hung between them, laden with all they had begun to imagine together, but had not yet spoken aloud. Mark had been thinking about their future too, had even gone so far as to look at engagement rings, though he'd planned to wait until the twins' adjustment to their relationship was more complete. When is she expecting you to return? He asked after a long moment. 3 weeks, Maya replied, her voice hollow with dread. The engagement ceremony is scheduled for the first weekend in November. Mark felt as if he were drowning, clawing desperately for air. 3 weeks, 21 days, to convince Maya to stay, to find a solution for her mother's health, to fight for the life they had begun to build together. We'll figure this out, he promised again, gathering her back into his arms, trying to infuse the words with a confidence he didn't feel. Together. Maya held on to him tightly, her tears soaking into his shirt. Neither spoke the fear that pulsed between them. That sometimes love, no matter how profound, wasn't enough to overcome the complex web of family obligations, cultural expectations, and the depths of the heart that could pull two people apart despite their deepest wishes to remain together. Chapter 8. Fighting for Love. The ticking clock seemed to echo through the Ellison mansion, counting down the days until Maya's departure. Mark threw himself into finding a solution with the same intensity he applied to his most challenging business problems, working late into the night, researching medical options for Maya's mother, and making calls to specialists across the country. During the day, he maintained a brave face for the twins, who remained blissfully unaware of the potential upheaval awaiting them. Maya moved through her days in a fog of conflicting emotions. Love for Mark and the twins pulling her in one direction, duty to her ailing mother tugging her in another. She began preparing the children for her absence, without explicitly telling them she might not return, introducing them to their new weekend nanny, and creating detailed schedules of their routines. One evening, as Maya put away laundry in the twins' room, Sophie looked up from her coloring book with innocent curiosity. Are you going on vacation to see your mommy? Maya's hands stilled on the small folded shirts. Yes, sweetheart. I need to visit her because she's not feeling well. Sophie nodded sagely. When people are sick, they need extra love. She returned to her coloring before adding, but don't stay too long, okay? Daddy gets sad when you're not here. The simple observation pierced Maya's heart. She sat heavily on the edge of Sophie's bed, overcome by the magnitude of the choice before her. These children, who had already lost one mother, might soon lose another maternal figure, and Mark, her sweet, loving Mark, would once again be left to pick up the pieces of a broken family. Desperate to find a compromise, Maya had called her mother daily, trying to explain her situation, the love she'd found, the family she'd become part of. But Grace Carter remained unmoved, her responses growing increasingly weak as her health deteriorated. A man who truly loves you would make you his wife, not his employee, she had said during their last conversation. Her voice faint, but her conviction strong. The brown boy has respected our ways, sought my blessing. What has this American done except keep you as his children's caretaker? The question haunted Maya. Though she knew Grace didn't understand the complexity of her relationship with Mark, the words stung with a grain of truth. They hadn't discussed marriage, hadn't defined their future beyond the immediate present. Was it because Mark still hesitated to fully commit to her? Was she just a convenient solution for his broken family? Meanwhile, Mark faced his own battles. His parents had escalated their opposition, threatening to challenge his leadership of Ellison Industries if he continued his relationship with Maya. Though the board had been neutralized for now, Edward Ellison had begun reaching out to major shareholders, sowing seeds of doubt about his son's judgment. "You're throwing away everything your grandfather built," Edward had shouted during their last confrontation. "And for what? A nanny from Jamaica who's probably after your money." Mark had ended the call immediately, rage coursing through him at his father's prejudice. But the argument had solidified his resolve. The company, his parents' approval, his standing in society, none of it mattered compared to the family he and Maya had created together. With just 10 days remaining before Maya's scheduled departure, Mark called a family meeting with his sister and parents at Claire's neutral apartment. "I've asked you here because I want to make myself absolutely clear," Mark began, standing tall in his sister's living room while his parents watched with guarded expressions. "I'm in love with Maya Carter. She is the best thing that has happened to me and the twins since Lila died, and I will not lose her because of your outdated prejudices." Margaret's lips thinned with disapproval. "It's not about prejudice, Mark. It's about what's appropriate, what's best for the children and the company." "The twins adore her," Mark countered. "They call her Mama Maya. She's brought joy back into their lives, and mine. How is that not what's best for them?" "They're confused," Edward insisted. "They've attached to her because she's their caretaker. That's natural. But it doesn't make her a suitable mother figure." "Lila wouldn't want," Margaret began. "Don't," Mark interrupted, his voice dangerously low. "Don't presume to tell me what Lila would want. Lila made me promise on her deathbed to find love again, to give our children a mother's love. That's exactly what I'm doing." Claire, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. "Mom, Dad, I've seen them together. Maya is wonderful with the twins, and she makes Mark happier than he's been in years. Why can't you be happy for them?" Edward ignored his daughter, focusing instead on Mark. "You're making a mistake that will cost you everything. The board, I don't care about the board," Mark said firmly. "If necessary, I'll step down as CEO. The twins' trust funds are secure, and I have enough personal wealth to ensure they'll never want for anything. What they need, what I need, is Maya." Margaret gasped. "You can't mean that." "Ellison Industries has been in our family for 3 generations. And it may continue to be," Mark replied. "But not at the expense of my family's happiness." He took a deep breath. "I'm going to ask Maya to marry me." The pronouncement landed like a bomb in the elegant living room. Edward's face reddened dangerously, while Margaret pressed a hand to her chest as if physically pained. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," Mark said. "I'm not asking for your blessing, though I'd welcome it. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Maya's mother is ill and wants her to return to Jamaica for an arranged marriage. I intend to give her a reason to stay." Claire broke the tense silence with a small whoop of joy, rushing forward to hug her brother. "It's about time," she exclaimed. "Lila would be so happy for you." Mark hugged her back, grateful for her support. When they separated, he faced his parents again. "You have a choice to make. You can accept Maya as my wife and the twin stepmother, or you can continue this opposition and lose your relationship with all of us. I won't subject Maya or my children to your disapproval any longer." "You're asking us to accept this arrangement or never see our grandchildren again?" Margaret asked incredulously. "I'm asking you to respect my choice of partner," Mark corrected, "to treat Maya with the dignity and acceptance she deserves, to be the loving, supportive parents and grandparents I know you can be." His voice softened slightly. "She's a remarkable woman if you'd only get to know her." Edward and Margaret exchanged glances, decades of marriage allowing a silent communication between them. Finally, Edward spoke, his voice gruff but less combative. "You're really willing to give up the company for her?" "In a heartbeat," Mark confirmed without hesitation. Another long silence stretched between them before Margaret sighed deeply. "Your grandfather would have hated this," she said, but the fight had gone out of her voice. But he also believed in standing by family, no matter what. It wasn't acceptance, not yet. But it was the first crack in their opposition, a small opening that might, with time, widen into something more welcoming. "Thank you," Mark said simply. As he left Claire's apartment, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He hadn't won his parents' blessing, but he had made his position clear. Now came the more difficult challenge, convincing Maya to stay, to choose the family they had built together over the obligations pulling her back to Jamaica. He drove to a small jewelry store in the city, one far from the high-end establishments his family typically patronized. There, he found what he'd been searching for. A ring as unique and beautiful as the woman he loved. Not a traditional diamond solitaire, but a deep amber stone the exact color of Maya's eyes, surrounded by small diamonds, set in rose gold. It wasn't the most expensive ring in the case, but it was undeniably the most perfect. That evening, as Maya tucked the twins into bed, Mark prepared the patio where they had shared so many meaningful conversations. He arranged candles around Lila's garden, knowing that acknowledging her place in their story was essential to their future. On the stone bench, Lila's favorite spot, he placed a photo album he had carefully assembled, filled with pictures of Maya with the twins, interspersed with heartfelt notes from both children expressing their love for her. When Maya finally came downstairs, her eyes red-rimmed from the emotional strain of these past weeks, she stopped short at the sight of Mark, waiting by the back door. "What's all this?" she asked, noticing the soft glow of candlelight through the windows. "I need to show you something," Mark said, taking her hand and leading her outside. Maya gasped when she saw the garden, transformed by dozens of flickering candles. Mark, before she could say anything, he began, guiding her to the bench. "I want you to look at this." He handed her the photo album, watching as emotion played across her face while she turned the pages. Tears filled her eyes as she read Sophie's crooked writing, "I love you because you sing songs when I'm scared." And Noah's careful letters, "You make the best pancakes and give the best hugs." "They love you so much," Mark said softly. "We all do." Maya closed the album, pressing it to her chest. "I love them too, and you." "But my mother I know," Mark acknowledged. "That's why I've been working on a solution." He took her hands in his. "I've arranged for your mother to receive treatment at the best kidney specialist in New York. A private medical transport will bring her here next week, along with any family members she'd wants to accompany her." Maya's eyes widened in shock. "Mark, I can't accept. The cost is nothing compared to what I'd lose if you left." Mark finished for her. He took a deep breath and dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "Maya Carter, you brought life and love back into our home when I thought it was gone forever. You healed my children's hearts and mine. I don't want you as an employee or even just as a girlfriend." He reached into his pocket and withdrew the ring box. "I want you as my wife, my partner, the mother of my children." Maya's free hand flew to her mouth as Mark opened the box, revealing the amber stone that seemed to capture the essence of her spirit. "Will you marry me, Maya? Will you choose this family we've built together? Will you let me help your mother so you don't have to choose between us and her?" Tears streamed down Maya's face as she looked from the ring to Mark's hopeful expression. "Mark, she hesitated, torn between overwhelming joy and lingering doubt. "What about your parents? The company? I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." "You're not taking anything from me," Mark assured her. "You're giving me everything that matters. Love, family, a second chance at happiness." He pressed gently but firmly. "The rest is just details." She nodded, touching the ring with trembling fingers. "It's the color of my eyes," Maya whispered, in wonder. "I noticed them the first day you walked into our lives," Mark confessed. "They're the windows to the most beautiful soul I've ever known." A sob escaped Maya as the last of her resistance crumbled. "Yes," she breathed, pulling Mark to his feet and into her arms. "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to all of it." As their lips met in a kiss that promised forever, the candles around Lila's garden flickered in a sudden, gentle breeze, as if offering a blessing from beyond, one mother watching over the family she'd loved, approving of the new mother who would carry her legacy of love forward. Chapter 9. Airport Goodbye. Despite Mark's heartfelt proposal and meticulous plans to bring Maya's mother to New York for treatment, the situation grew more complicated in the days that followed. Grace Carter's condition deteriorated rapidly, and her doctors advised against the long journey to America. The medical transport Mark had arranged stood ready, but Grace steadfastly refused to leave her home and the support network of her close-knit community. "My mother is Jamaican to her core," Maya explained through tears as she and Mark sat in his study late one night. Her home, her church, her friends, they're her strength. Taking her away from them now might break her spirit, even if it helped her body. Mark's heart sank as he recognized the impossible choice before Maya. "You need to go to her," he said. The words painful but necessary. Maya nodded, her engagement ring catching the lamplight as she wiped away tears. "Just for a while, until she's stabilized. 2 weeks. I can explain everything in person, make her understand about us." She looked up at him, her eyes pleading. "You understand, don't you?" "Of course I do," Mark assured her, pulling her close. "Family is everything. I would never ask you to turn your back on your mother when she needs you most." They agreed that Maya would travel to Jamaica for 2 weeks, long enough to be with her mother, introduce the idea of Mark properly, and gently break the news about the canceled engagement with David Brown. The twins were told she was going to help her sick mother, with promises of her quick return. The dreaded day of separation arrived too soon. Mark arranged for a private car to take them to JFK Airport, the twins unusually subdued in their car seats. Sophie clutched the Jamaican doll Maya had given her when she first joined their household, while Noah repeatedly asked when exactly 14 days would be over. "Remember our calendar," Maya reminded him gently from the front seat. "You'll mark off each day with the special stickers. And before you know it, I'll be back." "Promise?" Noah asked, his voice small and uncertain. "I promise," Maya said, turning to meet his eyes. "Nothing could keep me away from you for long." Mark watched the exchange with a heaviness in his chest. Though he tried to remain optimistic, a nagging fear persisted. What if Grace convinced Maya to stay? What if the Brown family pressured her? What if her cultural obligations proved stronger than the bonds she'd formed here? They arrived at the international terminal too quickly. Mark helped Maya with her luggage, while the twins held hands, unusually clingy with each other, as if sharing strength. Inside, the bustle of travelers rushing to destinations unknown created a chaotic backdrop to their private heartbreak. After checking in, Maya knelt before the twins for a proper goodbye. "I need you to be extra good for Daddy while I'm gone," she said, straightening Sophie's little cardigan, "and help Miss Claire when she comes to stay with you." "I don't want Miss Claire," Sophie said, her bottom lip trembling. "I want you." Maya's voice caught as she pulled Sophie into a hug. "I know, sweet girl, and I'll be back before you know it. We'll video chat every day, I promise." Noah stood stoically until his turn, then launched himself into Maya's arms, with such force he nearly knocked her over. "Don't forget us," he whispered, his face buried in her neck. "Never," Maya vowed, holding him tightly. "You're in my heart forever." Mark watched, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. The scene was painfully reminiscent of other goodbyes Lila leaving for the hospital to deliver the twins, not knowing she would never return home. He pushed the thought away forcefully. This was different. Maya would come back. Finally, it was time. The security line waited, and Maya's flight would begin boarding soon. She rose, composed herself, and turned to Mark. 2 weeks, she said, touching her engagement ring like a talisman. 2 weeks, he echoed, pulling her into his arms. They held each other tightly, neither wanting to be the first to let go. "Call me when you land," he said. "I will," she replied, looking up at him, memorizing his face. "I love you, Mark Ellison." "I love you too, Maya Carter." Soon to be Ellison. Their kiss was gentle but laden with promise, a bridge across the ocean that would soon separate them. When they parted, Maya picked up her carry-on bag and turned toward security, shoulders squared with determination. She had taken only 3 steps when Noah broke away from Mark's grip. "Mama Maya, wait," he cried, his little voice carrying across the bustling terminal. Maya turned back, and in that instant, both twins ran to her, crying in earnest now. Sophie clutched her legs while Noah wrapped his arms around her waist, both sobbing as if their hearts were breaking. "Please don't go," Sophie begged. "Please don't leave us like Mommy in heaven did." The innocent plea shattered Maya's careful composure. She dropped to her knees again, gathering both children close as her own tears fell freely. "Oh, my darlings, I'm coming back. I promise you with all my heart." Mark approached slowly, his chest tight with emotion. Seeing the 3 people he loved most in the world clinging to each other, he made a sudden decision. "Maya," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "This isn't right. The twins need you. I need you." He knelt beside them, creating a circle of shared grief and love. "Let me come with you to Jamaica." Maya looked up, surprised. "What? But the company, your responsibilities." "None of it matters more than this," Mark said firmly. "We should face this together as a family. Let me meet your mother, explain to her in person how much we love you." For a moment, hope flickered in Maya's eyes, but reality quickly dampened it. "The twins can't miss school, and your mother is still recovering from her surgery. There's no one who could." "Then I'll go with you," Noah declared with the simple logic of a child. "I'll tell your mommy that you're our mommy too." "Me too," Sophie added, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "We can help her get better with extra love." A sad smile crossed Maya's face as she smoothed both children's hair. "Your hearts are so big and beautiful, but your place is here with your daddy." She looked at Mark, her expression resolute, though tears still shimmered in her eyes. "And I need to do this alone. My mother needs to see that I'm making this choice from strength, not because I'm being persuaded." Mark recognized the wisdom in her words, though it pained him to admit it. "You're right," he conceded. "But know that we're with you in spirit every moment." Maya nodded, gathering her courage. She kissed each twin on the forehead, whispering private words of love to them. Then she stood, squaring her shoulders again. 2 weeks, she repeated, more to herself than to them. As she turned to leave once more, Mark suddenly called out, "Maya." She paused, looking back at the man she loved and the children who had become hers in every way that mattered. "Will you be the mother of my kids?" Mark asked, his voice carrying clearly across the terminal. "Not just their nanny, not just my wife someday their mother, officially, completely, forever." The question, so simple yet so profound, seemed to hang in the air between them. Travelers moved around their tableau, some casting curious glances, others smiling at what appeared to be a romantic movie moment come to life. Maya stood frozen, one hand still on the handle of her suitcase, the other pressed to her heart. The twins looked up at their father, then back at Maya, their little faces alight with hope despite their tears. Maya began, her voice failing her as emotion overwhelmed her once more. The airport announcement system crackled to life. Final boarding call for Jamaica Airways flight to Kingston. All passengers should proceed immediately to Gate 22. Maya looked helplessly from the departure sign to the family before her, caught between two worlds, two loves, two impossible choices. "Go," Mark said softly, understanding in his eyes. "Talk to your mother. We'll be here waiting when you return." With one last anguished look at her future family, Maya turned and hurried towards security, forcing herself not to look back. If she did, she knew she wouldn't have the strength to leave. Mark gathered the twins against him, all three watching until Maya's familiar form disappeared into the crowd. "She'll come back," he promised them, and himself. "She loves us too much not to come back." But as they walked slowly from the terminal, Sophie's small voice carried the fear they all felt. "Mommy loved us too, but she never came back." Mark had no answer for that painful truth, only a faith in the love he and Maya had found for each other. A love he had to believe was strong enough to bridge oceans, cultures, and family obligations. As they drove away from the airport, the sky darkened with gathering storm clouds, as if the heavens themselves mourned their separation. Chapter 10. Love Prevails. The days following Maya's departure stretched endlessly for Mark and the twins. Though they marked the calendar faithfully each night, time seemed to crawl at an agonizing pace. Maya called daily as she had promised, her face on the video screen both a comfort and a painful reminder of her absence. The twins brightened during these calls, chattering about school and showing her their artwork, but afterward, they fell into an uncharacteristic quietness that broke Mark's heart. In Jamaica, Maya faced her own struggles. Her mother's condition had stabilized somewhat, but Grace remained weak, her once vibrant spirit diminished by illness. The Brown family had been coldly polite when Maya explained the canceled engagement, their disappointment evident, though they maintained a respectful distance out of deference to Grace's health. On her 5th day in Kingston, Maya finally gathered the courage to show her mother the engagement ring and properly explain about Mark. "He asked me to marry him," Maya said, sitting beside her mother and taking her thin hand. "Yes, Mama," she continued, showing the amber ring. Mark loves me, and I love him and his children. We've become a family. Grace was silent for a long moment, her gaze drifting to the family photographs on her bedside table. And what of David? His family has been good to us. I know, Mama. But I can't marry a man I don't love. Love? Grace echoed, something like disappointment in her voice. In my day, we built love through marriage. It grew with time, respect, with children, through shared struggles. She looked directly at Maya. This American, is he a good man? Does he respect you? Or does he see you as a convenient mother for his children and nothing more? The question struck Maya's deepest insecurities. He's a good man, Mama, the best I've known since Papa. He values me for who I am. Then why did he not come with you? Why are you here alone, defending your choice? Maya hadn't expected this challenge. He offered to come. I was the one who thought it better to speak to you first, woman to woman. Grace studied her daughter's face carefully. Show me these children you love so much. Maya eagerly pulled out her phone, showing her mother photographs and videos of Sophie and Noah. Grace watched silently as her daughter's face transformed while speaking of the twins. A glow of maternal love evident in every word, every gesture. You are already their mother in your heart, Grace observed quietly when Maya finished. Yes, Maya admitted. I tried not to be. I always honored their birth mother's memory, but love found a way. Grace sighed deeply, closing her eyes as if the conversation had exhausted her. I need to rest now. We will speak more tomorrow. For the next week, Maya divided her time between caring for her mother and video calls with Mark and the twins. Each day, Grace asked more questions about Mark, about the life Maya had built in America, about the twins. Though she never explicitly stated her opinion, Maya sensed her mother's resistance softening through her thoughtful silence and contemplative nods. Meanwhile, in New York, Mark faced challenges of his own. His parents, though less openly hostile since his ultimatum, remained cool toward the idea of Maya as their daughter-in-law. The board had called another emergency meeting, citing concerns about stability and leadership, a thinly veiled reference to Mark's personal life. On the 10th day of Maya's absence, as Mark prepared for the confrontational board meeting, his phone rang with a call from Maya. His heart leapt at her name on the screen. Maya, is everything all right? Her voice came through with a slight tremor. Mark, my mother wants to speak with you on video. Can you talk now? Mark glanced at his watch. The board would have to wait. Of course. Moments later, he found himself looking into the weathered face of Grace Carter. Despite her illness, dignity radiated from her posture, from the careful way she'd arranged her headscarf, from the direct gaze that assessed him through the screen. Mr. Ellison, she greeted him formally. I believe you wish to marry my daughter. Mark replied with equal formality. Yes, Mrs. Carter, I love Maya very much, and so do my children. Love, Grace said, the same note of skepticism in her voice that she had used with Maya. In my experience, Americans speak of love easily, but commit with difficulty. I understand your concern, Mark acknowledged, but my commitment to Maya is absolute. She has brought healing and joy to our lives, when we thought they were gone forever. Grace's gaze sharpened. My daughter tells me your first wife died. Yes, Lila died giving birth to our twins, Mark confirmed, the familiar ache of that loss present but no longer debilitating. And now you would have my daughter raise your children, take on your wife's memory? Mark considered his answer carefully. Sensing the importance of this moment, I would have Maya be exactly who she is, the remarkable woman you helped raise. She has taught my children about Jamaica, about your traditions. They know your family songs. They love coconut bread. He smiled slightly. If anything, she has brought her culture to us, enriched our lives with it. Something softened in Grace's expression. And if I fall more ill, if she needs to be here, then we would come to you? Mark said without hesitation. All of us. Family supports family, Mrs. Carter. Maya would never have to choose between us. Grace was silent for a long moment, studying Mark's face. I wish to see these children who call my daughter mother. Mark called for the twins, who rushed to the screen with excited greetings when they saw Maya. When he introduced them to Grace, Explaining she was Maya's mother, they immediately showered her with questions and observations. "You look like Mama Maya around the eyes," Sophie declared. "She said you make the best rice and peas in all Jamaica. Are you feeling better?" Noah asked with genuine concern. "Mama Maya went to help you get strong again." "Mama Maya," Grace repeated softly. Watching the interaction between her daughter and these children who so clearly adored her, after several minutes of conversation, she asked to speak to Mark alone again. Grace fixed Mark with a penetrating gaze. "My daughter deserves a man who will stand beside her always, who will honor her as an equal, not a servant in his home." "I couldn't agree more," Mark said sincerely. "Maya is my partner in every sense, my equal in all things." Grace nodded slowly. "Then come to Jamaica, Mr. Ellison. Bring your children, meet my family, show us that your intentions go beyond words." Mark's heart surged with hope. "When?" "Now," Grace said simply. "Today. If your commitment is real, prove it." Mark didn't hesitate. "We'll be on the next flight." 24 hours later, Mark stood with the twins at Sangster International Airport in Montego Bay, scanning the crowd for Maya's face. He had called an emergency family meeting before leaving, informing his parents and the board that he was taking personal leave, effective immediately. "If you force the issue while I'm gone," he had told the stunned board members, "my resignation letter is already prepared. Family comes first, always." Now, as they waited in the humid Jamaican air, the twins bouncing with excitement, Mark felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where they needed to be, proving their love, fighting for their family. "Daddy, look," Sophie cried, pointing across the terminal. "It's Mama Maya." Mark's heart leapt at the sight of Maya pushing through the crowd, her face alight with joy and disbelief. The twins broke free, running toward her with delighted screams. She knelt to catch them, wrapping them in a fierce embrace as tears streamed down her face. Mark approached more slowly, savoring the reunion, the completion he felt at seeing Maya with their children again. When she looked up at him over the twins' heads, the love in her eyes took his breath away. "You came," she whispered as he reached them. "You actually came." "Of course we did," he said, helping her to her feet and pulling her into his arms. "You're our family. We go where you go." Their kiss was interrupted by Sophie tugging at Maya's dress. "Can we meet your mommy now? We brought her presents to make her feel better." Maya laughed through her tears, lifting Sophie into her arms. "Yes, sweetheart. She's very excited to meet you all properly." The week that followed transformed everything. The Ellison family was embraced by Maya's extended family and community, invited into homes for meals, welcomed at church services, included in evening gatherings, where stories and songs were shared beneath star-filled skies. Mark watched his children absorb Maya's culture firsthand, saw them form bonds with her siblings and cousins, observed them falling in love with this piece of Maya's heart, just as he was. Most importantly, he witnessed the growing respect between Maya and Grace, as her mother saw firsthand the family they had created together. Though Grace remained weak, her spirit seemed to strengthen each day she spent with her daughter and the twins, who treated her with a grandchild's unrestrained affection. On their final evening in Jamaica, as the twins slept exhausted from a day at the beach, Grace called Mark and Maya to her bedside. "I have been stubborn," she admitted, taking one of each of their hands. "I wanted for Maya what I thought was best, a marriage within her culture, close to her family, with a man whose background I understood." She looked at Mark with new respect. "But I see now that love does not follow such narrow paths." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Does that mean?" "It means," Grace said, squeezing their hands, "that you have my blessing." She turned to Mark. "Take care of my daughter, Mr. Ellison, and bring my grandchildren to visit their Jamaican family often." "I promise," Mark vowed, his own vision blurring with emotion, "and please, call me Mark." Grace smiled, the first true smile they had seen from her. "Go now. I believe you have a wedding to plan." 6 months later, on a perfect spring day, the gardens of the Ellison estate burst with flowers, as chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing an arbor woven with lilas roses and tropical blooms flown in from Jamaica. Guests gathered from both worlds, Mark's business associates and childhood friends mingling with Maya's family and community members who had traveled from Kingston for the occasion. In a remarkable turn of events, Edward and Margaret Ellison had not only accepted the inevitable but had worked diligently to make amends, arranging for Grace's medical treatment at New York's finest hospital and personally welcoming Maya's family when they arrived for the wedding. Though their journey toward full acceptance remained a work in progress, their sincere effort spoke volumes about their changing hearts. Inside the house, Maya stood before a wedding dress that combined American elegance with Jamaican influences. Ivory silk overlaid with delicate lace in patterns that echoed Caribbean artistry. Beside her, Sophie twirled in her flower girl dress while Claire made final adjustments to Maya's veil. "The twins want to see you before the ceremony," Claire said, smiling at her soon-to-be sister-in-law. "They've got something about a special surprise." Moments later, Noah entered in his tiny tuxedo, carrying a flat package wrapped in silver paper. "This is from me and Sophie and Daddy," he announced proudly. "But mostly from Mommy Lila." Maya accepted the gift with trembling hands, carefully unwrapping it to reveal a framed photograph of Lila, smiling radiantly with newborn twins in her arms. Inscribed on the frame were words that took Maya's breath away. "Two mothers, one family, boundless love. Daddy said Mommy Lila would be happy you're marrying him," Sophie explained, suddenly serious beyond her years. "That she sent you to us." Unable to speak, Maya gathered both children into a fierce embrace. When she finally found her voice, she whispered, "I will treasure this always, and I promise to honor your mother's memory every day of our lives." The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of traditions. Christian vows interspersed with Jamaican customs, music that bridged cultures, readings that spoke to the universal language of love. When the twins presented the rings, their faces solemn with the importance of their task, there wasn't a dry eye among the guests. As Mark and Maya exchanged their vows beneath the flower-laden arbor, the spring breeze carried the scent of Lila's roses around them, a sweet reminder of the promise made and kept, of love that had transcended loss to find new expression. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the minister declared. Before he could finish with the traditional invitation to kiss, the twins rushed forward, wrapping their arms around both Mark and Maya. "We now pronounce us a family," Sophie announced, looking at the laughing guests with complete certainty. Mark lifted his daughter into his arms while Maya held Noah, completing the circle they had been building since that first day she walked into their lives. "A family," Mark agreed, leaning in to kiss his wife for the first time. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and the twins were asleep beneath the watchful gaze of their Jamaican grandmother, Mark led Maya to their bedroom, now transformed with touches of both their tastes, his classic furnishings complemented by the vibrant colors and artistry she had brought into his life. "Happy?" he asked, drawing her into his arms. "Completely," Maya answered, her amber eyes reflecting the soft lamplight as she smiled up at her husband. "This journey wasn't easy, but it led us exactly where we were meant to be." As their lips met in a passionate kiss that held the promise of all their tomorrows, love patient, enduring, transformative love wrapped around them like a blessing, healing final wounds, building unbreakable bridges, and uniting two worlds in the perfect harmony of family. Finally, beautifully, completely whole,